Hello, I'm Joey.
And I'm Sam.
Hello, Professor. This is Joey speaking. Today, Sam and I will be discussing on the possibility of legalizing euthanasia in Singapore. Our focus will be mainly on the social acceptance of euthanasia by Singaporeans. Firstly, I will be introducing the different terminologies of euthanasia that we have adopted. Next, I will briefly describe the context of euthanasia in Singapore. Following that, I will give an outline of our methodology. Afterwards, I will hand the time over to Sam, where he will be discussing the survey results that we have attained. And lastly, Sam will conclude and provide a stance on whether Singaporeans are open to the idea of legalizing euthanasia. Euthanasia is a term that has many different definitions. Hence, in our research, euthanasia will refer to voluntary euthanasia. Voluntary euthanasia embodies both active euthanasia and physician-assisted suicide. Active euthanasia involves the direct administration of a lethal substance to the patient by another party with merciful intent, while physician-assisted suicide involves a medical professional making lethal means available to a patient who wishes to terminate his life at his own desired timing. In Singapore, euthanasia is not legalized. In place of euthanasia, Singapore has an Advanced Medical Directive, also known as the AMD, and it acts as a will for one to opt out of life-sustaining treatment if one is suffering from a terminal illness. However, it is an ineffective method as there is a time lapse between the creation of the directive and the point of treatment. Most Singaporeans create this directive when they turn 21. Therefore, unless the point of treatment for one suffering from a terminal illness is in his or her 20s, the time lapse between the creation of the directive and the point of treatment is way too long and has created inherent complexities. There is also limited discussion on euthanasia, and this could be attributed to the conservative Asian mindset and the traditional beliefs that are ingrained in Singaporeans. As such, death is often a taboo to be spoken about. Since conversations about death are already a taboo in Singapore, what are the chances of Singaporeans talking about legalizing euthanasia? Close to none. However, with the recent decriminalization of attempted suicide in Singapore at the start of this year, January 2020, it seemed to have provided hope for those silently in support of euthanasia. Dialogues on death and on improving end-of-life care in Singapore has sparked. Why does this mean that there is hope for legalizing euthanasia in Singapore, you may ask? Well, this is because suicide and euthanasia share similar concepts. They often overlap in a grey area, as both revolve around an individual making a conscious decision to die. Moreover, the decision to no longer prosecute people for taking their own life can be interpreted as the government becoming more understanding of people's decision to take their own life, and hence this shines a glimmer of hope on euthanasia in Singapore, because the government seems to be leaning towards providing a humane option for terminally ill patients who wishes to end their life. And hence, our research question is, are Singaporeans open to the idea of legalizing euthanasia? We created a survey that comprises of both the quantitative and qualitative aspect. Our main question was a yes-no question asking Singaporeans whether they think euthanasia should be legalized in Singapore. We then asked for the reasoning behind their choice. So through mass sending of our survey links via social media platforms to our friends, family and group chats, we managed to attain a total of 165 respondents. Now, I will pass the time to Sam for him to analyze our survey results.
Thank you, Joey. As you can see from the diagram here, out of 165 surveys, a grand total of 78.8% of them were open to the idea of euthanasia. A majority of this group came from the 18 to 29 age group. Amongst those we surveyed, a large majority of them are university undergraduates at 59.1%, while the next largest group was diploma holders at 24.4% and bachelor holders at 14%. We also noted a trend amongst these surveys to be of the low income range, where 82.4% of them recorded a $0 to $1,800 per month income. So, what do these numbers mean for us? There are a multitude of factors to consider that led to a surprisingly strong support for the legalization of euthanasia, and I'll break them down here. The most obvious trend is that youths appear to be, on the whole, more accepting of euthanasia, and looking into the statistics of Singapore, there is a correlation of increasing this religion amongst the youths, and this would explain the correlation of more liberal mindsets about euthanasia due to the lack of religious constraints. This generation also tends to be less influenced by societal notions and taboos that the older generations have, which was the reason given by those who voted no to legalizing euthanasia in our survey. Digging deeper into our data, we also found that higher education and lower incomes led to higher receptiveness towards euthanasia. This is in line with global empirical studies on the attitudes towards euthanasia, where the more educated possessed more tolerant and liberal attitudes, with greater focus on self-autonomy, while the lower income groups were driven by concerns of economic burdens on their families. While this research was only able to be conducted in a brief and rather surface-level surveillance and analysis, we found and are able to conclude that from this sample size, there is a high level of social acceptance towards legalizing euthanasia in Singapore. Extrapolating it to the whole of Singapore, the underlying trend is a slow but growing understanding and acceptance of euthanasia, which is the first step towards legalizing it and improving the standard of living of Singaporeans. Some limitations that we noted through the process of this research was the limited outreach we had, and if there were more time, we would be able to better ensure a spread of race and age representation, as well as getting opinions of terminally ill patients who are ultimately the main beneficiaries of euthanasia. We believe that euthanasia is a viable option in Singapore, and as long as we are able to come up with a stringent framework to ensure that there are no loopholes in the screening and processing of patients who are eligible for euthanasia, we will be able to prevent any form of abuse. We must look forward and work toward a better future for society. With that, we have come to the end of our presentation. Thank you.